Hello and welcome to today's edition of Extraordinary Outcomes. I'm Shubhanjan Sarkar, your host and founder of PitchLink, the buyer-seller engagement platform. PitchLink is focused on the buyer and on making buying easy. That is why PitchLink provides a buyer's dashboard where all pitch narratives received via PitchLink is neatly stacked by vendor for easy engagement. The buyer can access her dashboard by simply logging in using the official email ID and an OTP sent by your system to authenticate and ensure data privacy. No sign up or password management for the buyer. It is so simple, you will wonder why no one thought about it earlier. When was the last time your buyer thanked you for your pitch? Want to know more? Sign up for a free one-on-one session, link in the attachments. We continue to bring you the complete interviews that we recorded and aired earlier in the year with experts on the 5% conversion problem in B2B sales. Today, we bring you the complete conversation with Art Fromm, founder of Team Sales Development Incorporated. Art is a sales transformation consultant with a wealth of consultative sales training and development expertise based on over 20 years of industry and sales experience. He began in engineering and quickly moved into various sales positions where he routinely surpassed revenue and performance targets and led sales teams. Art moved into a sales enablement role in 2000, responsible for development of 450 ACs and partners worldwide, eventually founding his own company, Team Sales Development, in 2004. Art developed the webinar mastery series and has successfully helped sales teams and trainers at companies including Cisco, Nokia, DBS Bank, Palo Alto Networks, Informatica, and also delivered a spectacular increase of almost $1 billion of bookings for a multinational electronics manufacturing outsourcer. Art, welcome to the show. I'm delighted to have you and thank you very much for making time right in the morning. We are going to talk about this elephant in the room, which I believe sales leaders ought to be talking, but somehow we choose not to. That's the discussion today. But before we get into that, I'll request you to tell us a bit about you so the people who don't know you should get to know who I'm talking to.
Sounds good. I really appreciate the opportunity. And hello, everybody. My name is Art Fromm. I'm based in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And most significantly to most of you who are listening that are in sales roles is that my company, Team Sales Development, is focused on helping salespeople to generate more revenue, increase win rate, increase margin, have happier customers, longer and deeper relationships, and things like that. So I offer a portfolio of different trainings and consulting that focus on all aspects of the sales cycle, from the initial prospecting all the way through customer success. And I'm in kind of a unique position to do that because I was a customer for about 8 years of software. And so I was on the receiving end of a lot of calls and people trying to take my budget and things like that. And then the middle part of my career, I was in sales and sales management roles. And then the last 20 years or so, I've been focused on sales enablement, helping companies transform their sales processes and methodologies. So it's such a pleasure to be here. And hopefully you and the audience and those listening will get one or two things out of it, and that would be great.
I hope so too. I'm sure it will be better than that. So let's dive right in. The lead to conversion rate in B2B sales is abysmally low. You can agree to disagree on the 5% number that I use, but I have numbers from research organizations which peg it at 1.8%. I have numbers which is about 7 or 8%, but by and large, across geographies and across industries, it is between that range. Mm-hmm. So Art, my question to you, how did we get here?
Mm-hmm. Well, as I think some of your other guests have said as well, I think the numbers can vary greatly. The point is that there's way too much effort, time, investment put in that doesn't lead to where we want to go. And I think how we got here is, I think it's just because traditionally a lot of sales, used to be maybe more B2C. There wasn't all this B2B opportunities like there is now with SaaS and so many other offerings. And so I just feel like the old adage about, go out and find as many as you can and work on as many as you can. And then we've all heard the numbers of, whatever, 138 or whatever, where you need all of these to get these. And the problem with that is, to get more of actual conversions, you got to put more in the top of the funnel. And unfortunately, that means just more work and more effort. And yeah, we could add more people to do more calls, but the question is that helpful? And oh, by the way, since a big theme I know of yours and of mine as well is the buyer perspective, this is not good for the buyers either, the decision makers, the stakeholders, the people that are called. And I think that all too often they get calls from people that are hoping to get something. We all get those emails, those LinkedIn connections and things where it's like out of the blue, somebody's telling me all about themselves when they don't even know anything about me. And it's very unlikely that that will stick. So I think that that's what it comes from, is just the old philosophy of the more calls you make, the more likely you are to get a deal. But it's very inefficient and very often leads to frustration by everybody on both sides of the equation.
It's interesting thing that you talk about the B2C lead, and I think there is a lot of truth to what you just said, because lot of what we do in B2B sales are actually the legacy routines that we had in B2C sales, and where that came from is the industrial production first, find the market later philosophy, right? Stack them high, sell them low. First, figure out that we have figured out to make 100,000 cars. Now we'll go out and figure out who is going to buy it. A lot of time it was linked to creation of market, which means it was not a business buyer who was planning to make an investment over the past 18 or 24 months, who you think you are going to get to now, but somebody who didn't know and had the money and was ready to buy a car. So there's a big difference between these two scenarios. Yet, a lot of what we do is a sort of a legacy that we are carrying from that mindset of mass manufacture to mass market to, okay, get people into the showroom and they will buy.
hmm Yeah, I mean, going back, way, way back, think about the Fuller Brush salesperson as we had in the US. This is a person that went door to door and had a pack full of things that were commonly needed and would show up and say, do you want one of these? Do you want one of these? Do you want one of these? And they had to go to house after house after house after house. And at the end of the day, if they did maybe 10 sales visiting, I don't know what, 100, 150 houses, they were happy with that. Again, the problem with that, it just leads now to buyer fatigue, salesperson fatigue, and a tremendous, misappropriation of resources and frustration. So I think that the key is thinking about what it is that is different now, that can be done differently, that helps the buyer, helps the person on the other end of the phone, while at the same time helps us as the salesperson to determine what we can do about that 5% or whatever you want to call that. So the one thing is that thinking about in terms of that funnel and what goes in at the beginning, being able to sort that through a little bit. And one of the things that I've worked with some others on is really thinking about what's the strategy of your company? Where are you trying to go? What are you trying to do? And identify what those buyers look like in terms of something that aligns more to where you really want to take people. There's some methodologies out there that talk about challenging people and things like that. And I get what the point is. The thing is that people don't want to be confronted. They want to be helped. And I don't know a single person that won't take a phone call from somebody who is truly trying to help, that they can listen to and actually, make things happen. I know I was listening to an interview a little while ago with Magic Johnson, and he was talking about that he called up CEOs of all these different companies and just asked them, pick their brain about what it is that they're really interested in, what are they trying to do and things like that. And of course, they took the call because it was Magic Johnson. But the point is, he was willing to say that he needed help and he was looking for information. So I think everybody ultimately is. And what we can provide to them is guidance. And that's where we should start, I believe, a position from, is when I'm making these calls and I don't know who the other person is on the other end of the line, what can I use as a connection there to get things started? So for sure, we don't want to start by opening our code up and saying, hey, which one of these do you like? it needs to be something that gets their interest. And one of the approaches that we've used is part of my portfolio is Great Demo, and Great Demo is a methodology really for how to demonstrate mainly software solutions, but it starts with the customer in mind and it puts the last thing first. So whatever your main point is, you put right up front. Um, if you're able to do discovery, that's pretty easy to do because you can find out what they care about. The challenge with the 5% problem is we don't know necessarily much about them, but here's what we do know. We know their job title, most likely. We know their industry. We probably have a good idea about people like that we've worked with before and what they are thinking and what they care about. So what we advocate and something to consider is what we call vision generation. So with vision generation, what you do is you put a scenario up without even talking about us first at all. We don't talk about ourselves. Put a scenario up that says, hey, my understanding is that you're the, project manager in charge of this, or you're the factory floor person in charge of this. When we've worked with others like you, they have said, this is the challenge they have. They have said, these are the things that are getting in the way of achieving their goals. They have said, these are the things that they are looking for in terms of a solution. And what I like about that approach is we are helping them to see a third perspective of somebody else and what somebody else is doing that we have worked with. We don't even talk about our solution yet. We start with giving them a little bit in order to get. And what that does is it creates some credibility for us in terms of, hey, this is a person I might want to listen to because it sounds like they know my competitor. They know others just like me. And what can they give to me to help me out? It also helps with making sure that we aren't trying to push our stuff first. And I'll tell you what, if you got a salesperson on the phone and the first thing they started talking about was you instead of them, it probably would feel a little different. So this is one of the approaches, and I can talk more in detail about that in terms of the benefits, in terms of what it does. But I think you could start to realize that it helps weed out, are we even talking to the right person? And it generates some hope and curiosity for them.
Absolutely, absolutely. So before I actually do a deeper dive into the solution, let us analyze the problem a little bit more.
Hmm.
The expectation of organizations is that this SDR, who is the newest recruit of the team, is going to solve this problem because he's going
Hmm.
to prospect better. Do we see that actually the sales leadership is passing the buck?
Yeah, I don't think so entirely.
Okay.
So I've worked with a lot of brand new, and it's amazing to me. Many companies are doing a great job of hiring people right out of college, and they have a new, a new hire program, an academy, so to speak, and they are using those people who not only don't have any sales experience really, but no industry experience to drive some of this. And I've often thought, how can that possibly work? They must at least have to have some industry experience or something to be able to get those calls. But looking at it that way, those type of roles, their main job is not to get the sale. Their main job is to start the sales process, to start the buying process. Their goal is to get the next meeting. That is their close. Their close is to get a meeting that says, yes, this looks interesting enough to me that I'd like to talk with somebody in more detail, or I believe you have something that can help me out in terms of the solving my problem or helping me achieve my goal. And therefore, I'm willing to take a meeting with the next person that you can set me up with. Now, should they be from the very moment they talk with the prospect or the lead? Should they be thinking about the ultimate end of the sale? Absolutely. They can be gathering information already and thinking about, well, what would it look like for them to decide to move forward? What's the potential risk that keeps them from moving forward and things like that? But their only goal is, and I say only, it's a big goal, right, is to get that next meeting. And if that next meeting is done because the buyer likes what they saw, I like to call it, we turn it from a push into a pull, right? Instead of us trying to push a bunch of stuff or throw it against the wall to see if it sticks, let's put something out there that intrigues them and gets them interested. So they say, hey, I like what I see so far. What else can you tell me? Where else can you go with it? Now our conversion rate of that first interaction is going to go up, and it sets it up for more success down the road. And I think it helps to build that credibility. So I think that it's okay to have it to be those type of roles because you need your experienced sellers to be the ones that now take it from there and continue on through the rest of the process. And by the way, all these people that are doing this will eventually become those sellers. So it's good that they see what this looks like on the front end. And one of the things that I know many of the academy programs do is they get them talking with sellers and ride-alongs and all that, right? That allows them to see the downstream. But I'm brought in oftentimes to talk with these folks up front, and usually it's around, they might be looking at etiquette or meeting control or things like that, and that's not what I specialize in. It's about transformation. So yes, those are important, but what is their real job? It's to get the whole process started, get that meeting as their close.
How much do you think the disconnect between marketing and sales is contributing to this problem?
I think that's a whole other that's a whole other dimension. Somewhat it does because again, the people that are making these initial calls or that are getting the inbound calls need to be equipped with enough information to know the type of things the caller, the prospect, the buyer is going through. They have to understand enough about their world so that they can relate to them and have empathy around what it is they're trying to do instead of, oh, hi, hello, you're calling ABC company. You want to see what I have? Here's what I have, right? That doesn't work. And marketing could be great at providing that. Ironically, I find that, and all due respect to marketing, and I know it's getting better, many times I see a lot of feature function stuff. It's all about us. It's all about our product, maybe a little bit about what it does. What's missing is how does it help the customer?
According to you, how can we fix this? How can we fix
Mhm.
this? How do you see we can actually, as organizations, have to start with, have a 10 or 15% conversion?
Yeah. Well, I think you're right. The funnel is necessary no matter what, because unless you have such a demanding business that people just come to you and sign up, you have to go out and prospect and market and all that stuff. So it's a reality. The thing we want to change is that 5% that we're talking about, right? So the funnel, for me, the idea is the funnel should not be all the way through the sales process to the end. The funnel needs to be right at the top, funnel at the top, then develop a pipeline of most likely things that could close. So part of the problem I think is there's a tendency, and I know, I was the salesperson too, is that I would want to chase everything because it's like, oh, you never know what deal might land. So you tend to want to chase everything. But that's the traditional funnel of putting more stuff in the top to get more out of the bottom, but your percentage of closing is still the same. It's just maybe more volume. On the other hand, though, I've got a lot more work to do up front, which is not efficient. So what can we do to neck that funnel down more quickly at the top so that it becomes a pipeline of more likely deals to close? Yeah, I think of the analogy of let's say you're going to buy a cake, right? When you go to the bakery, when you walk in, they don't say, what kind of flour do you want? And, we have 5 different kinds of flour. Or we have 3 different types of frosting. Which one do you want? What they do is they show you the baked cake. They get you interested. They show you the result up front. And then if you don't like any of them, like for me personally, I don't like coconut, at least not on my cake. So if I saw a cake that had coconut on it, I'd be like, no, I'm not too interested in that. I'll check somewhere else, right? If I see that finished product. So the analogy that for sales would be, what could we do without actually talking about ourselves, but what could we show up front that would help to neck that funnel down so that we could find people that are most aligned? And I think it starts with, what is your strategy and who are you going after? What is your best fit? We shouldn't chase after everything. What do we want to say is in? What do we want to say is out? I know one customer I was working with, they spent something like 9 months and $2 million chasing after a deal that wound up being the wrong deal. And so they wasted all that money, all that opportunity cost, wasted the time of the customer. Of course, this was further down in, But the point is they didn't do a good job up front of eliminating that as a customer they shouldn't chase, right? So what can we do to align with our strategy up front that helps guide us? Secondly is what can we offer in the form of like a baked cake that gets some idea of what we can do from their perspective, gets their buy-in and curiosity so that they want it, so that they're like, ooh, that looks interesting to me. I like that chocolate cream pie and I want to dig into it. Now, how do I do that? What is the way it looks for me? And what are the nuances for me? And I think that that's where we can offer up some of what our experience is working with others. Case studies and customer success stories on the website are intended to do that. I don't think people have time to read through that all the time. And surprisingly, everybody here's something that you could do. Go on your website, and if you're in marketing, take a look. Go on your website and see what are these success stories really saying. Who is it about? Is it about the customer and what they were able to do, or is it more about what you did? And I'm shocked that many customers I work with, I go on there to pull out examples and things, and all I see is here's our features, here's our functions, here's the ingredients of the cake. And yes, we delivered a cake. Well, so what? What did it do for them? What's in it for them? So thinking about what's in it for them, even in that funnel part and CSRs and BDRs, what are you going to bring to them? So what have we done that we see, not what we've done? Who have we worked with similar to you that's going through this? And now when we offer it up at that funnel part where we start to look at getting it into a pipeline, let's do a little pre-qualification right there. If the person looks at it and says, that's not me at all. No, I don't, that's not what I do. Okay, now we can have a discussion, right? Now we're going to get into some discovery. What's the same? What's different? If there's no match at all, thank you for your time. We respect that. Hope you could find a solution or even recommend them to somebody else. If it looks like there's a match, we start doing discovery, we start to document it. It starts to look like it's going into that pipeline that's more qualified, something that's more aligned. Back to the traditional sales, I think a lot of times for SaaS at least, and the IT telecommunication high-tech companies I work with, there's this tendency for the salespeople to always just be calling on IT. And I think that creates an unnecessary funnel because a lot of the people that are in IT are just the implementers. And yes, they could say no because they don't agree with the solution, but they can't say yes to go find budget and things like that. So we spend a lot of time and they wind up way down in the process, in the funnel. And it turns out they were just curious. They were just looking for technology. So thinking about things like what's the business benefits up front. So that's a half a dozen or so, ideas of where it could potentially help to neck that down and get the funnel out of the way, and now set those next meetings up that are more likely to close. Because it's not just next meeting, it's sales qualified lead, right? That's something we talk about. If we could get a sales qualified lead where it looks like it's aligned with us and aligned with what they need now, and they're pulling instead of us pushing, now we have a much higher likelihood of that closing. And maybe another time we could talk about the other factors to think about to get that close rate up as well.
So we are looking at a better sieve at the top, right? So a better qualifying process so that we can convert it into a pipe and not a funnel, right? So what, according to you, are ways to do that better? What do you say is a way to do this sieving, this sifting through the pile to find the ones which should go into the pipeline legitimately? How do you do that?
Yeah, I think that the first thing is that whatever leads you get or whatever system you're using, make sure that it is giving you things that are aligned with where your strategy and your goal is. Now, once you get them, it's important to try to understand and the SDRs, the BDRs, doing a little bit of homework on who is that person. I'm not talking about extensive research because, of course, they're making call after call after call after call. But what is their job title? What industry are they in? Where have I seen something like this before that I can start by offering them, hey, when I've worked with others like you, I've heard them say the following things. Does that sound like where you're at? And we're not necessarily putting words in their mouth. What we're doing is we are both sitting there looking at a third party, and it's often easier for people to talk about a third party than talk about themselves. So if we've done just that little bit of homework and a mindset around what are they going through that I can talk with them about, and not say to them, are you doing this? Is this something you're doing? Because people could become defensive, right? Now, how do we know which things we should be saying about this third party? It goes back to, what does a well-qualified prospect look like for us? What are the things that would be aligned with where we want to go? So we say, others, like you've said, these are their struggles. This is what they're trying to do. This is what they would like. If they had a magic wand, here's the things they would like. How does that sound? How does that compare to your situation? And at that point, we can start to have a discussion. They could say, hey, my challenge sounds exactly the same, but I'm looking at solving it a little bit different way. And they may even ask, is that something you can help me with? Because we've just told them we've worked with others like you. So we bring credibility and the ability to have the discussion. Now, in the back of their mind, all the way at the front of the sales process, we should be thinking about the final part of the sales process, the close. And not just the close, but beyond that, what will success look like for them?
See, when we are doing prospecting, we are going after some defined intent that is available to us through some kind of research, right? So whether it's intent data or through the calling, through the qualification process and so on, which means they're pretty much into the decision making process, right? So I mean, typically if you look at it, they're like 70% down the road.
Right.
And that may be pretty late, because they would have already been talking to some vendors that they think would be able to solve their problem. How can we get in early in the conversations that they're potentially having internally, which is at the level where they're talking of change management, right? So we have to buy something from outside and so on and so forth. You know this well. So how do we do that?
Yeah. So, yeah, and part of it is they don't know what they don't know sometimes as well. So they may be part way or a long way down the path and going on a certain track and may not be aware of what the possibilities are. So one thing to do is, whether they are at the very beginning or they're already down, the idea of saying what others like them, in our experience, are going through, it's a way of finding out how far they are along. And in fact, if we've done it correctly, we should be able to plant some ideas, not ideas about our product, but ideas about what the possibilities are and what the things are that they should be looking at. One suggestion is that, have a list of typically asked questions on your website that they should be asking anybody of which they're seeking out your solution. So here are the things that you should ask anybody. And I myself, I do a lot of things around webinar mastery, and I have kind of a consumer's guide to webinars and doing things virtually that poses a bunch of questions around thinking of things that a lot of people aren't even aware of, because mostly they use something like this environment and they're mainly just throwing their slides up there. But if we can provide some ideas to them up front that are available through the website, here's the things to ask, here's the things to think about. I think that the traditional lunch and learns that we used to do in person are a good thing to do. However, don't make it about you. Help people who are in the search, and you might even put it out as, hey, if you were thinking about this type of solution, here's some ideas for you to consider. And once again, I would suggest using this idea of vision generation that we utilize, where others like you have said they're doing this. What does that look like to you? And get people to be a little introspective. I'll tell you one thing that approach does is it's everybody knows about FOMO, right? The fear of missing out. When we start talking about what others are doing and give them ideas they hadn't thought of, it's like, ooh, others are doing that, I probably should be doing that too, right? And either it will confirm where they're at in their analysis, and they go, okay, I'm on track, and these people feel like there's somebody that can help me, or, oh my gosh, I'm this far down and I hadn't thought about that. I better go seek them out and see what it is that they have to do. So the idea that people don't know what they don't know, I think, is very powerful. And certainly if it gets all the way to the point where you're into an RFQ, RFP situation, as we know, that means it's almost a done deal, because we didn't get to influence it. So whatever we could do to influence those things, through our partners, through existing relationships, and through social selling. So this is why social selling is so prevalent, to get those insights and be able to find out what we can do to position things a little bit differently for our customers. And then they come to us. Or if we're engaged with them, we can give them something of value. Or we decide it's not a good fit and we graciously let them go. And by the way, one thing that I found interesting is sometimes when you graciously let them go, they start to realize how serious you are, and they may even come back and go, well, actually, we really do want to talk to you. Because they may go and do their homework and figure out, ooh, what they were telling me actually was pretty good stuff. I better call them back.
Yeah, and it's also a great way to build trust, right? When you can tell a customer that, or a prospect, that I don't think I can help you, or this is not exact fit for you, and you are better off with something else. Mm-hmm. You have actually elevated yourself in the trust quotient in their eyes.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah, that's what made a name for Macy's back in the day, right? They would, if they didn't have the product, they would recommend it to somebody else, and yet their business grew and grew and grew. It also, by the way, what's interesting about that is, if it doesn't fit with me, why would I want to struggle to make it work? Let's let somebody else take it, especially if it's business I don't really want to do. I'd rather give it to my competitor, and then they can be busy doing that other stuff where I stick to what my main focus is.
Absolutely. Art, this was a very enlightening and educative conversation. Mm-hmm. Obviously, by no means this closes the discussion, but I think this is a good point to leave it for the next one.
I really appreciate the time. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Art. I again thank you very much for coming on the show, and I hope to talk to you again sometime soon. We speak today with Mike Kunkel, a sales transformation architect and an internationally recognized expert on sales training, sales effectiveness, and sales enablement. He spent 36 years in the sales profession and 26 years as a corporate leader or consultant, helping companies drive dramatic revenue growth through best-in-class training strategies and proven effective sales transformation systems.
We are not getting to the root cause problem. We are not slowing down as a profession to zero in. We're not working from strategic to tactical to execution, right? Because you can't start with execution if you don't have the strategy outlined effectively and you don't have a great go-to-market tactical plan, right? And I think there are so many sales leaders today who still prescribe to the harder, faster, longer, louder method of sales management, rather than stepping back and saying, how is it that we're consistently not making quota?
We are very excited about the upcoming launch of our new community built to bridge the gap between buyers and sellers, Moxo. It is designed for buyers, sellers, and marketers to enable access to curated content, share ideas, and engage in conversations as a community. The space will be invite only, and if you want in, please write to us at moxo@pitch.link. That is moxo@pitch.link. Time to wrap up for today. You will soon have access to the complete interviews in the Fixing the 5% Conversion Problem in B2B Sales and transcripts in the series. Keep an eye out for the link in the EXO newsletter. And thank you for watching. Until next time, stay well and craft extraordinary outcomes.